Hello and welcome to Crime Beat Most Wanted. I'm Tracy Tong. Tonight, two violent murders in the west and east of Canada have police looking for two men they say are on the run. While children play in their backyards in Calgary, shots ring out, taking the life of a 26-year-old man. Days before college begins, a Toronto freshman celebrating his last night of summer is stabbed to death at a park just down the street from his home. Tommy Ngo from Toronto and Kier Bryan Granado from Calgary are two of Canada's most wanted. Police need your help in hunting them down. Though they are wanted for separate murders, police believe they may be on the run together. Here is Caryn Lieberman with the hunt for our first suspect, Canada's most wanted, Kier Bryan Granado.
Back alleys cut through Calgary's Monterey Park. They're a quick way to get to its tennis courts and playgrounds.
It's a hardworking community. It's quiet. There's lots of families, very unassuming.
Most who pass through here live here. But not on December 13th, 2015.
Right now we're gonna do some awesome things. I'm pretty sure you guys can suck. What the heck was that?
We have a very young boy playing in his family's backyard with his iPad when he's startled by the sound of gunshots, multiple gunshots.
Okay, I really think that's a gun.
Through a backyard fence, a glimpse of a murder scene.
Lots of people heard the gunshots. Because it was in an alley, obviously there wasn't a lot of direct witnesses.
I spoke with one neighbor who said she heard gunshots while she was in her home making lunch today. Now, police were called to this community roughly before 2:30 this afternoon for reports of a possible shooting and a person possibly injured.
You wouldn't expect that such a violent crime would occur in that alley.
The victim's vehicle comes into the alley off of California Boulevard behind Delray Road and parks right here, facing southbound. He exits his vehicle, and as he does, he's met with the worst possible scenario.
The victim is quickly identified as 26-year-old Hussein Meri.
He was a football fan, a barber, he was a son, he was a brother.
In 2015, I was working in our organized crime and intelligence area. When we have these types of homicides in the middle of the day, it definitely gets our adrenaline going, and we definitely want to, as a service, come together and try to find out who's responsible.
What detectives know is that Hussein Meri's killers were waiting for him.
We don't know why the suspects chose this location to meet the victim.
I know that neighborhood, and I know where it took place, and that area, you have families out there, obviously you have kids that are out playing, you have parks nearby. It makes me sick that there may have been other people that were injured or killed by stray bullets.
Once in the alley, the suspect's vehicle pulled along the west side of the fence as they waited for the victim to arrive. What they didn't realize was that many of the houses in this area are affixed with CCTV cameras, which were filming that day.
Can you describe what the videos show?
Our victim wasn't expecting to be targeted. And without warning, he was targeted by at least one suspect, fired upon, and died shortly thereafter in the alley by himself.
After the murder, that vehicle then flees north towards California Boulevard and out of sight.
Surveillance cameras in the area did capture a dark SUV taking off from the scene. Police are asking anyone who's seen a vehicle matching that description to call Crime Stoppers. Police do not believe this murder is connected to any others in our city.
We knew from review of the CCTV video what crime vehicle we were looking for. and that was placed out in the media. We don't know how many occupants were in the vehicle. The windows were quite tinted. We know there was a driver. We know there was a shooter. There may have been more occupants in that vehicle.
11 hours after the murder, police get a tip.
From the public, we received information where the vehicle was, and it was parked in a residential garage.
Concealed from neighbors' eyes just 30 minutes from the murder scene.
That garage was connected to Joseph True.
22-year-old Joseph True is a resident of this area.
And that led us to the charges of accessory after the fact.
The gray Ford Escape links them to another suspect.
Through the crime vehicle that was used in the homicide, also through the interpretation of electronic devices, we can place Mr. Granado at the scene of the crime.
Who is Kier Granado?
Kier Granado is a young Calgarian that we believe, unfortunately, is entrenched in the gang life. We believe he made a very bad decision, not only to join the gang, but also to be involved in this murder.
In 2015, gang violence with guns is on the rise in Calgary.
I think it was in 2015 was the first year where the gun was more prevalent in our homicides than the knife was. And that trend has just continued since that time, or around that time.
Mr. Granado was a key player and associated to the FK.
So this particular gang, the FK, have been involved in criminal activity in Calgary for over 20 years. They're responsible for multiple murders. We know that there's weapons involved. We know that there's drug dealing. This particular group has been so violent. The tragic wake of loved ones and victims has been disgusting.
It's clear to police that the victim, Hussein Mary, was not linked to gangs.
I think our worst fear in law enforcement is investigating the death of an innocent person. We believe he was killed by people associated to gangs, but he was not a gang member.
You know, sometimes what happens is people involved in gangs will commit murders or other violence that's not gang sanctioned. One of the hopes always for homicide investigators is to give answers to the family, and the motive in this particular one, that's the hope, is that we can get some answers for the family.
Almost 4 years later, Calgary police gather enough evidence to lay charges.
Police have now charged 23-year-old Kier Granado with first-degree murder and issued a warrant for his arrest. Granado may be living in the Edmonton area, and police are now asking for help finding him.
There is nowhere to go, and this investigation will not end until you are apprehended.
They get help with the hunt when the BOLO program makes Kier Bryan Granado one of Canada's most wanted.
A substantial reward is being offered to help make an arrest in a deadly shooting 5 years ago.
This $100,000 reward is not standard. For cases for which suspects have links to organized crime, we're always wanting to beef up our rewards to $100,000.
Kier Bryan Granado's image is plastered everywhere.
We exhausted all the tips that came in, and we were confident that Mr. Granado wasn't in the Calgary area. We believed he was in the Edmonton area, so we investigated that. We have pursued every lead that has come into us through Crime Stoppers or other sources.
In the fall of 2021, they get a big break.
Working on some information that we received, we believe that Mr. Granado was in the Greater Toronto area. With that, and working extensively with our partners with the Toronto Police Service, we actually identified Mr. Granado through a review of CCTV in the Queensway area of Toronto.
After years of allegedly evading arrest, Kier Bryan Granado surfaces. But who he is caught on tape with is shocking. Another man police say is a fugitive wanted for murder. Canada's most wanted, Tommy Ngo. That's after the break. Welcome back to Crime Beat Most Wanted. I'm Tracy Tong. Tonight, police are on the hunt for one of Canada's most wanted, Kier Bryan Granado. Take a good look. He's described as 5 feet tall or 154 centimeters. He has black hair and brown eyes and weighs about 83 pounds or 38 kilograms. He is wanted for first-degree murder. Police believe he may be living in the Greater Toronto area, with another man police say is a fugitive wanted for murder, Canada's most wanted Tommy Ngo, also referred to as Tommy Ngo. We now return to Caryn Lieberman and the hunt for most wanted Tommy Ngo.
The last weekend of summer, friends gather at a local park to squeeze out its final hours.
I would describe it as a neighborhood park. It has open field and has a bench where you can sit and relax. Beautiful trees. It's a really nice setting.
Russell Sahadeo is about to start a new chapter, college.
He was enrolled to attend college for a business administration program. He was in a new relationship with his girlfriend who he was with at the time, and he lived with his family.
He grew up just steps from Noble Park.
Russell and his group of friends were positioned in and around the bench. And these trees here, talking, mingling, drinking, having a good time. And our two suspects approached from East Drive up the hill here. They parked their vehicle up there and they walked down. And that's where the verbal altercation ensued, was in and around this area here. And then they leave. At some point, they head back to their vehicle. And 5 to 8 minutes later, they parked their vehicle at the bottom there and exited their vehicle. And they engage in the verbal altercation, which led to the physical altercation, which happens in the grassy area. The fight or the disagreement goes on for approximately 8 minutes before Russell stabbed. One stab wound to the abdomen. Paramedics attended, they commenced life-saving efforts, and he was transferred to the hospital, and he later succumbed to his injury.
Well, the weekend has been a violent one with several stabbings across the city. A 23-year-old man was stabbed in the chest at Noble Park near Jane and Eglinton. He was taken to a hospital where he was later pronounced dead. Police are calling the case a homicide. They say they are looking for two suspects who they believe approached and stabbed the victim, then took off in their car.
I got the call probably around 2:30 in the morning. It was Saturday night, Sunday morning. I notified my team.
I found out that morning when one of the detectives had arrived at Russell's house. The mother had called me and I had no idea what was happening, but she asked me to come to her home. It was a long weekend, summer weather, literally down the street from his residence, doing what typical 23-year-old kids do.
What did you know about what had happened?
There were several witnesses that witnessed the physical altercation, and we were provided with a really good description of the suspects. Within 48 hours, we were able to identify both individuals. We executed search warrants at their addresses. Suspect number one, his name is Marcus Richard Lee. He's 21 years old, of Toronto, and he turned himself into a 12 division 3 days after this incident. The second party involved in this occurrence is a gentleman by the name of Tommy Ngo. He's 20 years old, and he also goes by the name of Ton Quoc Hong Ngo.
What do we know about Tommy Ngo?
Well, he lived at home with his family. He was enrolled in college. He did not attend the date that he was supposed to start college.
Did the victim know the accused?
From all accounts, they didn't know each other. It was a chance meeting, chance encounter. There were members of the group that recognized the two suspects from being in the community.
The family of the Noble Park murder victim is urging the outstanding suspect to turn himself in.
If you know of him or may have information that can lead authorities to his whereabouts, I plead and beg that you come forward.
So at the time, we had a description of the motor vehicle. It was a dark blue 4-door car. And through our investigation, we were able to recover the car, which was sold by Tommy Ngo, the suspect. He sold the car two weeks later, and ultimately we were able to recover the car and forensically examine it.
But no sign of Tommy Ngo.
We've gotten tips saying he's employed at a particular restaurant, hair salon, factory, a number of different locations, and we followed up on every tip that we received to no avail.
As the manhunt continues,
So Marcus Lee was charged with second-degree murder. He pled guilty to manslaughter. There was enough evidence to convict him of the manslaughter as opposed to the second-degree murder. Ultimately, we learned that the person that actually did the stabbing was Tommy Ngo through the evidence in court.
time passes with no solid leads. They release a new composite of their suspect.
7 years later, he's now a young adult. My message to Tommy Ngo is to do the right thing, and turn yourself in, get a lawyer, and turn yourself into police. This is not going to go away, and we won't stop looking for you.
To turn up the heat, Toronto police partner with the BOLO program and named Tommy Ngo as one of Canada's most wanted.
They created flyers, went out into the community, handed out the flyers. It was kind of the first case in building a partnership with the BOLO program and law enforcement.
With the reward being offered by BOLO and the assistance of Crime Stoppers, we hope we will get the call we need to locate these suspects.
Working on some information that we received, we actually identified Mr. Granado through a review of CCTV in the Queensway area of Toronto.
In 2021, they get a break in the case. Tommy Ngo surfaces with someone else from BOLO's most wanted list, Kier Bryan Granado.
We believe Tommy Ngo is connected to an organized crime gang in Toronto, and that gang has direct ties to the FK, the same gang that Mr. Granado has. So it would be natural or an investigative assumption that if Kier Granado was in the GTA, that he would be supported by Tommy Ngo.
It's a big lead that brings two police forces together in the hunt for two of Canada's most wanted.
How desperate are you to find him?
Very desperate. We have allocated a lot of resources from the Calgary Police Service to work in Toronto with the Toronto Police Service.
In following up the tips, there are some parts of the investigation that make sense, that these two individuals would be together, but we haven't been able to locate either one of them for an arrest.
Police need your help tracking Tommy Ngo down. He is described as 5'6" or 168 centimeters. He has black hair, brown eyes, and weighs about 135 pounds or 61 kilograms. He is wanted for first-degree murder. If you see him, contact Crime Stoppers. Welcome back to Crime Beat Most Wanted. Police say that Tommy Ngo and Kier Bryan Granado have been evading arrest for nearly 8 years. Both are wanted for brazen murders. Police are asking you to be on the lookout and to call in any tips, no matter how small. Their last known whereabouts? Toronto. Here's more on the hunt for two of Canada's most wanted.
Two men in their 20s are senselessly murdered, one in Toronto, the other in Calgary.
What I'll always remember about the day was just sort of how callous the action seemed to be.
It's almost the same time it happened, 8 years ago, 2:15 in the afternoon. And 8 years later, we still don't know why this murder happened. We don't know the motive that precipitated this tragic event.
To date, only one arrest, Joseph True. He received a 60-day conditional sentence for concealing the crime vehicle. In an attempt to generate new tips, police produce a reenactment of the homicide.
Working with our media people within CPS, we did reenact the homicide. We did hire actors that were of similar stature, and we went through a number of different scenarios on the murder.
Obviously, we know that there are other suspects involved that haven't been charged. So hopefully people with information come forward and we can provide some closure to the family.
Hussein was the youngest of 5 siblings.
He was a good guy with a good heart. Nobody had a bad thing to say about him, which has made this all the more traumatic for the family because there's the senselessness of it all. They can't make sense of it. How does a guy like him end up with his life cut short in this way?
Victims advocate Tamara Cherry reads a statement from the Mary family.
Every happy occasion is punctuated with sadness because Hussein isn't with us. From every birthday, every phone call, every family gathering for 8.5 years. Life has not gotten better. Every day we think of Hussein. Hussein is not coming back, and there will therefore never be any real justice or closure for our family. We want those responsible locked up for the sake of our community.
A sentiment echoed by the uncle of Russell Sahadeo, speaking on behalf of his distraught parents.
Russell was a kind, gentle, loving person, a beloved nephew, beloved son, beloved brother, beloved cousin, and there is really nothing that can bring him back. There's nothing that can heal the profound grief that the family is currently experiencing. At the very least, I just ask that the suspects are brought to justice and they're held accountable for their actions.
In Toronto, where both accused were last seen, Canada's Most Wanted are on display.
We're looking for anyone that has information on his whereabouts, but also if you know anyone that is assisting Mr. Granado, it is an offense in Canada to assist someone wanted for murder. We want that information. We're not looking for evidence, we're looking for information so we can bring him into custody.
The smallest piece of information could be instrumental in leading to their arrest.
Here is one last look at Tommy Ngo and Kier Bryan Granado. If you have any information on either of their whereabouts, call Crime Stoppers. And remember, it's anonymous. There is a reward for tips that lead to their arrest. I'm Tracy Tong. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat Most Wanted. See you again soon.
For more from Crime Beat, there are over 80 episodes of the Crime Beat podcast available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.